Today we're going to talk about a fascinating and frankly jaw-dropping story. It's about a multi-million-dollar AI system that was designed to protect a nation's borders. But instead, it became this powerful cautionary tale for all of us living in the age of AI.
So it all kicks off with this one number, 99.989%. Now you might look at that and think, hey, that's an amazing accuracy score. But you'd be wrong. That's not how accurate it was. That's its error rate. A failure rate so unbelievably high it sparked a political firestorm and had officials scrambling for answers.
And that really gets us to the heart of the mystery here. How on earth does a system built with millions of dollars of public money and meant to be this cutting-edge security tool fail so completely? This wasn't just some minor bug. This was a total, catastrophic breakdown.
And that was the exact question that was asked in Taiwan's legislature by this man, legislator Wang Shiqian. He was the one who brought these absolutely staggering numbers to public attention, demanding to know how such a bungling system was ever allowed to be deployed.
He called it a world-class blunder, which, honestly, perfectly captures the scale of this thing. So first, let's just unpack the political fallout and get a feel for just how bad things really got. All right, so here was the plan, and it sounds good on paper. Taiwan's Customs Administration, they wanted to use AI to help out their officers. The system would scan X-ray images of luggage, and it would flag anything that looked suspicious. Drugs, weapons, you name it. The whole goal was to be smarter, faster, and way more efficient at catching the bad guys.
And wow, this system was busy. Over the period they analyzed, it scanned about 42.5 million pieces of luggage. Out of all of those, it flagged a whopping 5.2 million as suspicious. I mean, you hear that number and you think, amazing, that's a ton of crime being stopped. But hold that thought.
Because out of those 5.2 million alerts, can you guess how many actually had contraband inside? Just 124. No, that is not a typo. Over 5 million false alarms. Think of the chaos, the wasted hours for officers, for travelers, all to find just 124 real problems.
Well, as you can imagine, the public reaction was pretty intense, and it was captured perfectly in this brilliant, cutting pun from legislator Wang. You see, in Mandarin, the term AI sounds like AI. He flipped it into a phrase that basically means officials get an A grade while the citizens suffer. It just perfectly nailed the public's frustration with this whole mess.
So, okay, we know the system was a complete disaster, but why? To understand that, we have to pop the hood and actually look at the technology itself. Because this wasn't just bad luck, this was a series of really fundamental technical flaws. When the investigators dug in, they found 4 key problems. It all started with bad training data, which then caused the model to overfit. That meant it couldn't handle new information from the real world. On top of that, the model started to drift, and maybe the worst part, there was a critical lack of human oversight to catch any of these errors.
Let's really zero in on one of the biggest culprits here, overfitting. The analogy on the slide is just perfect. Think about it. The AI basically memorized all the answers for a practice test. That was its training data. But when it had to face the real exam, actual luggage at the airport, it couldn't generalize anything it had learned. It just panicked and flagged nearly everything it saw.
And then you have this other issue, model drift. Look, smugglers are always coming up with new ways to hide things. But this AI was static. It wasn't getting updated with new examples. So over time, the real world just drifted away from the AI's old, outdated knowledge, which made it more and more useless by the day.
So just how badly did this AI perform? Well, we can actually grade it. We can give it a report card using the same standard metrics that data scientists use everywhere. So let's take a look at its final grades.
Okay, first, we have to look at the main tool for grading any AI, the confusion matrix. It might look a little technical, but the idea is actually pretty simple. For any piece of luggage, there are only 4 possible outcomes. The AI can be right by flagging a suspicious bag, that's a true positive, or it can be wrong by flagging a normal bag, a false positive. And it's the same for the bags it doesn't flag. This grid just helps us see exactly where the mistakes are happening. Now, from that matrix, we get 2 super important grades. The first one is precision. Think of this as the crying wolf problem. It basically asks, of all the alarms the AI raised, how many of them were real? For this system, the answer was almost none. The second grade is recall. This is about what the AI missed. It asks, of all the real contraband that went by, how much did the system actually catch? As you can guess, this system failed spectacularly on both counts.
And here it is, the final report card. Accuracy? Failed. Precision, its ability to avoid false alarms? A spectacular fail. Recall, its ability to actually catch threats? Also a fail. And the F1 score, which kind of balances the two? It was basically 0. The model was, for all practical purposes, completely and utterly useless.
But, you know, this story is about so much more than just bad code. The technical problems were really just symptoms of a much deeper, more systemic failure in how this entire project was managed from day one.
Yeah, the real issue went way beyond the AI itself. This system was launched without any proper testing. When it, of course, failed, no one was really sure who was accountable. The data it was trained on was a complete black box. There's just no governance framework in place to manage the risks of such a critical system.
One analysis of this whole situation called this kind of system a high-tech error amplifier, and that is just a spot-on description. See, a bad AI doesn't just make mistakes. It takes existing flaws in data and procedures and it scales them up at machine speed, turning a small problem into a gigantic one.
So what's the lesson here? It's not that AI is bad. It's that we need a much smarter approach to building and deploying it. We need smarter AI and we need smarter governance to go along with it.
The path forward here is actually pretty clear, and it really comes down to these 3 core principles. It all starts with great data. It requires constant testing and validation against reality. And, maybe most importantly, it requires smart collaboration between humans and machines, not blind automation.
Ultimately, one sentence from the analysis really just sums it all up perfectly. Success with AI isn't about the size of your budget. It's about the quality of your process. It all comes down to data quality, model validation, and true human-machine collaboration.
And that leaves us with a final and, I think, critical question that goes way beyond this one case. As we hand over more and more of these critical decisions to algorithms, we have to decide, where does the buck stop? When an AI fails, who is ultimately responsible? That is a question we all need to start asking.